Schools Work podcast, a podcast for everyone in education. This show is brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. At SREB, we believe that every school has the potential to be great. Whatever you do in the school, whatever your job may be, let's talk about things that make schools work.
Hello and welcome to the Making Schools Work podcast. I'm Daniel Rock, and today's episode is going to feature one of our Pacesetter schools, Bryant Park Elementary in Jefferson County, Alabama. And this school, as I said, is a Pacesetter school, and with me to introduce them are the two leadership coaches who have supported this school for 5 years and helping them build capacity and go on a learning journey culminating in this award. I'd like to welcome from North Carolina, Connie Looper, and also from North Carolina, Susan Simpson. How are you ladies today?
Good morning. Doing well.
Great. Susan, how are you?
I'm doing well also. Thank you, Daniel.
So you nominated this school as a Pacesetter school, and they're receiving this award along with several schools from Jefferson County. What would you say makes this school stand out as a great school that serves its students? What are some of the things that really stand out to you?
The thing that stands out the most to me is the way this school went way beyond just going through a series of checklist events to say they were doing something. They really embraced the why behind what they were doing. The administrators allowed for teacher ownership, and so the buy-in was huge. Over time, the teachers took more and more ownership. The conversations were rich. And although in the very beginning, maybe they didn't understand all the pieces or how they worked, because the administrators allowed for that productive struggle and that ownership, they ultimately ended up with a much richer experience.
Connie, what are some of the things that you think really stand out to make this school excellent?
And I totally agree with Susan. You know, they were so focused on creating a supporting culture for an arts integration themed school. And in doing this, they showed a willingness to engage and incorporate best practices. They were willing to establish systems and processes and follow through even when things got messy. And I think that, you know, sometimes that's not easy to do.
So as we're listening, our listeners may want to really pay attention to how they are, as Susan said, building teacher ownership and teacher leaders within the system, and what Connie was talking about in terms of processes and systems for success. One of the strategies we're going to hear about in the second half of this interview is instructional rounds. And that's something that a lot of our partner schools have seen a lot of success in, just both of those things. It's a system for improvement, and it's also a way for teachers to lead their own learning. Can you give us a sort of short elevator speech explanation of what instructional rounds are and what maybe some of the best practices of a great instructional round, since that's something that our listeners will learn about in this episode?
I think the key point for us when we were talking with them is these are teacher-led instructional rounds. We use many terms in schools, but we really focused on teacher-led instructional rounds, which for us meant that the teachers were in charge. This was an environment that allowed them to try things without they weren't being evaluated. They chose what they were trying. They told you what they were interested in getting information about. They set up the time you would come in and what you needed to look for. And they determined the value of the feedback that they got. They had asked the question, so they were able to say, yes, this is important to me. This worked. This didn't work.
Susan, anything you want to add?
Well, like Connie said, it's teacher-led, which is a huge shift from administrators or district administrators coming in and giving feedback. So I think that they embraced that and were willing to try something that might have felt a little uncomfortable at first is what allowed them to be successful.
Awesome.
I think one other thing that makes this different and was very hard for us and for them is administrators step back. They do not control. They allow the teachers to go through the process. And this school, they were willing to do that.
Thank you very much. So I want to listen to this episode for examples of how leaders can build teachers to be the ones leading their learning, taking control of their learning, and really becoming systematic in how they learn over time, whether it's integrating the arts or building a peer support system. Thank you both for your amazing work with this school, for joining me today, and for being such awesome coaches and colleagues. I'm sure we'll have you back again.
Thank you, Daniel.
Hello, and welcome to our Making Schools Work podcast. This is going to be an episode all about a school that is one of our SREB Pacesetter schools. We're presenting a series of podcasts that are going to be highlighting schools that are showcases for great work and that put our SREB processes into practice. Joining me today is Courtney Slaughter, the principal of Bryant Park Elementary, and Alex Wilson, one of the teachers at Bryant Park, as well as Jason Adair, our director for instructional programs. Hello, Jason.
Hey, Dan. Good to join you again.
Yes. And hello, Courtney and Alex. How are you?
Hey, great. Thank you for having us today.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So we're going to today hear about how you have created a new school from scratch over the last 5 years and what you've done to make this school become a Pacesetter school. What are some of the key practices and structures and processes that as a leader you've brought to the school, and Alex as a teacher, how you have put those ideas into action and impacted the students. So if you could just tell us a little bit about who you both are, a little quickly about your background, and then tell us about the school and what it is and how it came to be.
I'm Alex Wilson. I am a first grade teacher here at Bryant Park. I was part of the opening team here back in 2020. I taught second grade at the time, but I've been doing first grade since that second year. I'm also our drama sponsor and one of the leaders of our drama club here. We do practices every Thursday afternoon, and we do a bunch of shows and programs, and it's a very exciting thing. So it's very well-rounded within the school. It's been a blast.
Courtney?
I'm Courtney Slaughter. I'm the principal here at Bryant Park Elementary. I've been in education. I'm finishing year 18. We have been at Bryant Park for 5 years. Prior to being the principal here at Bryant Park Elementary, I was a principal at Hueytown Elementary School. Prior to that, I was assistant principal at Fultondale Elementary School. So if you were to go to Google Maps and type in Bryant Park Elementary, it would take you to Birmingham, Alabama, which is in the central area of Alabama. However, our school sits in the city of Clay. So we're about 15 minutes from downtown Birmingham. Our school is part of one of 30 elementary schools in the school district. We are the second largest school district in the state of Alabama. There are a total of 57 schools in our district and 13 feeder patterns. So I think it's important to paint that picture of how large our school district is. We are sitting in the city of Clay. We are predominantly African American, our student body, and we have a small percentage of white and Hispanic students that attend here as well. We have roughly close to 700 students, and 72% of them live in poverty.
Now, you all have received some recognitions. Tell us a little bit about some of the recognitions you've received since you were created in 2020.
Some of the recognitions that we have received since being open at Bryant Park Elementary, the Class School of Distinction, we were given that award because of our arts integration and the work that we have done within the arts and the core curriculum. This year, we were an Alabama State Department, Alabama Reading Initiative Reading Spotlight School because of our data in reading proficiency and sufficiency. We also have been certified as a Marzano High Reliability School Level 1 school. And most recently, we are really excited about our newest award, the SREB Pacesetter Award.
Which is obviously the highest accolade you've gotten.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, that's the one to truly be proud of.
Yes.
So arts integration, what does that mean?
Well, there are about 3 different types of arts education. You have art for art's sake, which is your music classes, your visual arts classes, when they go to specials in the day that they're teaching specifically that form of art. You have arts supported instruction, which is like if you're in a kindergarten classroom and you're teaching the kids the ABCs to help them learn their letters and sounds. But then arts integration is when you take those art standards and those reading, math, science, self-studies, core curriculum standards, and intertwine them together. And you're making a cognitive effort to use both of those skills and teach the vocabulary and the steps for both academic and art skills. So when we talk about arts integration here at our school, we're always trying to make sure that we're implementing one of the 4 art forms. And we have theater, dance, music, and visual arts. And so it's important that on a weekly basis, students are able to engage in one of those art forms within the core curriculum. And it's important through this process that we try to approach it as it's not something else, right? Because we always hear educators talking about we're always adding onto their plates and it's always something new. It's not something new. It's just something that you can use to promote that student engagement, to make students want to come to school, to help them retain the information more. And so when you ask about what is arts integration, is a way to make sure that our students have different opportunities to learn in a format that is comfortable to them and helps build their confidence.
So, yeah, curious. I love that. You kind of defined several purposes. What are you seeing that's different in your students based on this arts integration that you're implementing in your schools?
We're definitely seeing way more engagement. You have certain students that are very shy, and when it comes to whole group or even small group, they're the ones that aren't going to raise their hands. They don't really want to participate in the discussion. It's kind of, you're dragging those answers out of them. But when you put the education in a form, whether it's dance or a song or getting to do something visually and hands-on, I've seen students that don't want to speak a word to me be able to present a whole piece of work that they've done with an art form and been able to assess them on skills that maybe they might not do as well on a paper pencil test. But if they could show me this information in art form, they're showing the comprehension that this is just the way that they do better with it. They're expressing themselves. They're being more collaborative in their learning. We have a lot of small group and teamwork activities within these art things. And so they're choreographing dances together. They're working together to create characters and tell stories and make beautiful works of visual art.
I think something for me that I really take away when I go into classrooms and see art being integrated into the core, it goes along with what Miss Wilson did just share with us. But something that I think is so powerful is we know that we have students that are struggling across the board, not just in Alabama, but across the board in reading. And we know math as well now that we're starting to dig deeper into math. What I truly love is being able to go into, whether it's a reading class or a math class, and seeing students not just working out the problem on the traditional paper and pencil that we all know. All of us probably listening to this right now can think back to your school, and you think about your school days of taking assessments, doing work on nothing but paper and pencil. Through the arts integration, students are able to, for a reading story, they're able to use tableaus. They can act it out. So it's not just you're just reading it and trying to comprehend it. We actually turn that text into an actual art form for them to be able to understand it, either one, at a deeper level, or two, just being able to understand it. We know we have students that can read a passage and they might not understand what they just read, but giving them the opportunity to act that out or show what they just read in a different form can show that a student retained the information.
But it sounds like when we talk about integration, there's the 4 arts: drama, visual, music, and dance. And these are both ways for the teacher, they're ways for students to build understanding of academic concepts. So
Correct.
the arts is a learning tool for the students, and they're learning how to use different types of artistic processes and products to build an understanding of the concepts. Now, you just said math equations. Can you give me an example of how the arts are used to teach math?
One of the lessons I do in my room for in first grade, we do fluency within 10 and within 20. And one of the things that I learned from a professional development last year is we do tap dancing to solve problems. So if I do 2 plus 3, well, this dance movement has 2 steps and this dance movement has 3 steps. If I put this 2 movements together to make a dance, how many steps did I include? And I could solve that problem. So students could we have ways where they can make their own dance, and then the other students have to, how many steps do they do? What problem can you make out of that? Or I could even put up a problem that's just the dance movement, and they got to tell me, what problem is this? What numbers does this express? So shuffle, shuffle, tap would be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. If I put all those numbers together, what number did I get? So
that is really cool. It also sounds fun.
Yes.
Gasp. And it sounds like you're teaching kids how to use their whole brain, right? We've sort of isolated and labeled people. I'm a math person. I'm a verbal person, right? I'm an arts person. I'm a logic person. And you're exploding that and saying we're all everything. And we use these things to get smarter. And that's really, that sounds like a fun place to go.
But only if we pull it out, right? Like only if we allow that to happen. And that's what your arts integration is allowing that to happen. And you're providing that space for that. So that's what's super exciting.
Alex,
Yes,
did you have experience teaching this way before you came to the school?
no, sir. I taught second grade at Centerpoint before this, which is another school in our district, but I was just a general ed teacher.
Right. So my question for Courtney is, how did you build a team of teachers like Alex who will go from not doing this type of teaching to now being cheerleaders and passionate practitioners? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
I like how you said, tell us about that journey, because that is the perfect word. It is definitely a journey. When we opened the school in the middle of a pandemic, we were tasked with piloting an arts-themed school for the district. And as we all know, the pandemic was already a lot within itself to run a school through COVID, and then being tasked to, hey, let's pilot arts-themed. I truly believe we have, through the process, it's been a shared leadership approach, making sure that teachers have the support they need and a voice that they need to be successful in a new environment with arts integration. Because teachers that came into this school, none of us, including myself, had any idea what this process was going to look like. So it took a lot of us coming to the table and having those conversations. What is the vision? What is the district's vision for us? What is the mission? And how can we take that and make it work within our school? And so we had to put a lot of leadership teams in place, a lot of processes in place to make sure that everyone had a voice. And we were also having the procedures in place to make this happen. And we did that through a lot of leadership teams and making sure that we had common planning team throughout the week.
Tell us a little bit about the leadership teams and what those looked like.
Okay. So we currently have the Continuous Improvement Leadership Team that most educators know as SILT. We have that leadership team. We always have had that leadership team. Something that we've added to help this process with arts integration is we have what we call a design team. And the design team is tasked with making sure that we are focusing on arts integration and continuing to build on arts integration. Because obviously when we started in 2020, we had nothing on our plate. And so over the years, through the design team and the continuous improvement leadership team, we've been able to work together between the two to not only improve classroom instruction, leadership through the SILT team, but also make sure arts integration is pushed into the SILT team as well and spread throughout the school. So our design team meets once a month to talk about, okay, where are we currently at with arts integration? What do we need to think about doing? What ideas do you have? What are you hearing in the hallways from teachers about arts integration that we may need to provide other resources or support, or have a conversation about arts integration with the staff?
Can you give an example of a decision that the design team has made, or something like a change that they recommended and how that impacted you?
We meet often for different school-wide programs. And so we are getting ready tomorrow. We're having our fine arts night, and it is a school-wide program where we're showcasing some of the clubs that are extracurriculars, but also each class in our whole school works together to make a canvas that we're having a silent auction to sell the students' artwork. We have the kindergartners are singing a special end of the year song. We have implemented arts clubs our second semester for the last 3 years. And so every teacher, one day a month, we break out and just teach art for art's sake, a club of our choice, and the kids sign up for the clubs. And so we have finger painting club and dancing through the decades. And my first year, I did a cosplay club, and the students get the chance to break out and be with students that aren't exactly in their classroom, and get to be involved in an art of their choice. And then during our fine arts night, we display all the artifacts that we've gathered during these art clubs to show off all the hard work that they've done.
So it sounds like the design team kind of keeps the school focused on that integration and making sure that everybody is working together on big projects as well as more classroom related things.
I think something big that our design team brings to the table is you have to be visionary. You have to be able to say, okay, this is where we're at now. Where do we see ourselves in the next couple of years? And what steps do we need to take to get there? You said, what are some of the things the design team has done? Something that I truly love, and this is something small, to keep the students getting experience with music piece of arts integration. Every morning, someone from the design team is responsible for playing. Each week we have a different theme of music we play over the speakers when students come in. So they get exposure to different forms of music that they get to listen to in the morning. Something that I will never forget this moment is we, a couple years ago, decided, hey, let's try to start taking the kids to Birmingham Broadway show. And we knew, being where we're located and the number of students we have in poverty, a lot of our students, including some of our teachers, have never been to a Birmingham Broadway show. And so we applied, and a couple years ago, we started taking students to the Broadway show. Well, and this all came about through our design team, just conversations the design team is having about where are we, where do we want to go, what are some opportunities we need to consider. Well, this past year, we had some leftover tickets for Broadway. We took our students to see Annie, and last year it was Aladdin, and all the students were excited to see Aladdin. Who doesn't love Disney Broadway? But this year it was Annie, and we didn't have as many interested, so we had leftover tickets. We offered those tickets to our parents, and at the end of the show, or as we were getting on a bus, I had a parent come to me and say, Dr. Slaughter, I am so thankful for this opportunity. I myself have never attended a Broadway show. So not only have you given my child an opportunity who has never seen Broadway, you've also extended that to me. And that was an aha moment for me. This work that we're doing is more than just giving students exposure to art forms in their regular classroom, which is great. But we're also getting the community more aware of what is arts integration and giving them opportunities that even as adults, they haven't had the opportunity to attend. And so it's a bigger picture than just what's going on in the classroom.
As the principal, I'd love for you to talk for a little bit about the teams that you've put in place.
Sure.
What are the things that you had to consider, work on? I assume you've been at a school where there haven't been these teams and you're at one now that has them. What are the things that you had to consider in putting these in place? Because I love that you feel ownership and that you're trying to transfer that ownership from you. What were the things that you had to consider when doing that? What are the struggles that you've encountered?
My biggest point is making sure that I'm not the only one making decisions for the school, because it's not about what I want. It's more about a collaborative, shared leadership environment where we can all come together. And so thinking about what leadership teams do we need to have in place to make sure our school is moving in the direction that we need to move it in. And so some of those include the continuous improvement team, the design team. And within those teams, it's important to note that I truly like to have somebody from each grade level represented on that team. Because sometimes as administrators, you put together a team, right? And you only get maybe 3 or 4 people total to be on that team. You might get more, but you want to make sure. It was important to me that I made sure that each grade level had representation on each leadership team. That way I know when we're meeting, the ultimate goal is, okay, when we have a meeting with these groups of teams, what we discuss, that grade level representative is then able to go back and give the same communication to their grade level. Because my belief, if you don't have someone represented on each grade level, there's going to be miscommunication. There's going to be a grade level that doesn't have someone represented on that team. And even though we all have the best intentions to make sure they're informed, is that a process where they're always informed of what's going on? And so it's important when building these teams to make sure there's someone represented on each team. So I mentioned the design team. We have the continuous improvement leadership team. We have the math school improvement team. And we're also this year adding a writing reading leadership team. And we have already, when we decide, okay, who's going to be on these teams, we send out a survey. I'm big on let's get some surveys, let's get people's input, because again, it's not about just what the principal wants. The principal does, drive that boat, make sure that we're going in the right direction, but you should also get buy-in from those people you work with every day. Their voice is just as important. And so this year, the past couple of years, we've sent out a survey. Here are all the leadership teams that we're going to have for this school year. What team would you like to be a part of? And they go through and they just tell me what teams they're interested in. We give description of what each team is, what each committee is. And then from there, my assistant principal and I look at all that data and then start plugging people in to those teams. And I think it's important to give other people opportunities. You don't want the same person on the same team every single year, right? You have to let people have opportunities to grow in areas they may not know that they are interested in. And so just making sure when you're building these teams that you need to be successful in the school, you're giving everyone an opportunity.
Sounds like everybody has an opportunity to be a leader if they want to be, and everybody has an opportunity to have their voice heard, and everybody there's both the communications going both ways. There's a system for the communication to go both ways.
Yes, and something that and I don't remember where I heard it, but I heard it many years ago. Clear communication is kind. And I think it's so important in any workplace that there is clear communication. You never want to be in an environment where there's not that consistent, clear communication, because then it creates chaos. Well, when we originally started this process, will be honest, the first couple of years, you have the same teacher leaders doing all of the work. And that's just kind of how it usually works in a school. It's the same teachers doing all of the extra work, doing all the extracurricular things. And I've made it a point to say, hey, we have enough leaders in this building where it doesn't have to be the same person doing everything all the time. So over the past couple of years, we've made that transition to it's not the same 8 or 10 people putting in all the extra work, doing all the committees. We have spread it out to where everyone has an opportunity to be a leader And that's kind of an expectation is, hey, what committee are you going to serve on? So we can hear your ideas and your voice too. And I think sometimes we have to give people that nudge of, you have great ideas. You might not be willing to sign up for this, but I believe that you have great ideas you can bring to the table.
I want to think about an imaginary teacher. Jason's son is entering education as a full-time teacher this year in elementary school. He comes to Bryant Park without a background in the arts, but he likes the arts. You hired him because he has some interest. He has not a lot of teaching experience, but you need to bring him into the culture. But more importantly, you need to teach him how to do arts integration. So if you could give me kind of the nuts and bolts of the professional learning process that his son would experience so that by the end of the year or even halfway through the year, he feels confident that he can teach math with tap dance, he can teach drama, he can teach English with art. What processes and systems will his son have at your school to get him on board with this program?
We currently have a partnership with Arts Now, and our training comes through them. And so every quarter, they come for 3 days to provide arts integration training to our staff. We always cover one of the 4 art forms. But for our new teachers, somebody that's coming brand new obviously needs the foundation of what is arts integration? What am I getting into? How can I get caught up to speed to where the people who have been in the school for 5 years, where they're currently at? And so through our collaboration with Central Office, there is Dr. Terrence Brown is the Director of Arts for our Central Office building. And he has been instrumental in helping us through this process. With his collaboration through Arts Now, they have paired with them to provide professional learning for new hires that come to the arts-themed schools. That's one of the biggest things is they attend some training that our veteran teachers do not train to get them caught up of what is arts integration, the basics, what does it look like? And then from there, everyone's involved in every quarter, 3 days of professional learning through Arts Now.
So the new teachers go, how many days is that, PD?
It's 2 full days.
It's 2 full days of what it is, what it looks like, the key components, and that's through your district.
Correct. They do a contract through Arts Now for them to come and do that. And they also have planning time within that to plan some lessons that they can take back from that professional learning to their classrooms.
So that's the initial sort of drink from the water hose. Yes. Right. And I'm thinking of it in terms of a school that has a program, right? A new initiative. And so there has to be some of that. So now what's the next thing that everyone's going to be doing?
We are expected in our lesson plans weekly that we submit every week to include at least 1 to 2 arts integrated lessons in our weekly plans. As we continue to grow in our arts integration school, we tend to add more of that. So when we first started, I think we only had to have 1 every so often and then at least 1 a week. And we add on to it each year. Like Dr. Slaughter said, we have been doing a quarterly training with Arts Now. It is a 3-day training. They send their instructors, which are professionals in their art field. We learn one of the different art forms each time. And so they'll send a professional from that art form. And that first day, they are just teaching us about that art form. What is the vocabulary that is integral in that? And how can we use it? And it's kind of a brainstorm. What is it in a brainstorming session? Day 2, we watch as one of those instructors come and teach one of those lessons to our kids. So I know a lot of PDs, you might hear a teacher say, yeah, that's great, but like, what about my kids? How can I do that with my kids? So getting them in and watching them teach it with our kids and seeing it, yes, our kids can do this. So it kind of gets rid of those negative thoughts to begin with. But they lead it with our students and we just watch and take notes and observe. And then day 3, we meet back and we debrief. What did we see? What did we like? How can we adjust it? And how can we use other ways of that art form for different lessons and across different curriculum? Because we only saw one lesson, but how can we use it several other different ways?
Right. So just to clarify, because some people's minds are blown right now, this is planning period PD, right? Correct? Like you're receiving this professional development during your planning period. You're not getting 3 days of full day professional development, because I don't want that to be a barrier for people, that it's something that's happening either in your classroom or during a planning time. Is that accurate?
Yes. So I think it's important to note that we're very intentional when we build the master schedule each year to make sure that we're allowing time for teachers to have during the school day. I'm very big on respecting teachers' time after school. We don't ever have meetings after school. I think I can count on one hand in 5 years the amount of times I've held teachers after school, because teachers and educators work so incredibly hard. I think it's respectful if we can get all the work done within the school hours to try not to hold them after school. Now, we know sometimes that we need to have meetings. That's obvious. But for the most part, we are intentional about that master schedule to provide opportunities for learning during the day. And another process we have in place, every Wednesday of every week, we meet with the teachers for an hour, the grade level, the math coach, the reading coach, and the administrators are part of planning once a week for an hour to talk about, okay, what is our data looking like right now? How's it going? What are we looking at next year? Where are we at on the pacing guide? And just making sure we're creating an environment where we can all talk about academics, achievement, where we're at. I do think it's important to share, when we started this process, teachers, it's easy for it to be assumed that the principal's micromanaging and trying to oversee everything by attending all the planning meetings. I did try to take a step back from that and say, you know what? Okay, if that's what I'm hearing, I don't want anyone to think I'm a micromanager. And I tried for just a little bit to take a step back. But then I really missed the conversations and the collaborations with my teachers. I felt like I was missing out on what they had going on in their classroom. And as an instructional leader, it's important for me to be a part of those conversations. So I know their successes and I know some areas they might need more supports in. So I have more boots on the ground of what's truly going on in the heart of the school. And once I talk to the teachers about, it's not about micromanaging you guys at all. I want to be a part of what you're doing, because what you're doing is phenomenal. And I want to be able to help you if you need help and celebrate you if you have celebrations. And just being part of that conversation was so important to me, to make sure that they have what they need. And that's something we ask too. Is there anything you need from us? Are there any resources you need? Is there anything we can do for you to help you? And our math and reading coaches ask that as well. And so just creating that environment of during planning, making sure it's meaningful planning. And we had to have the conversation when we began this. What is planning, right? What is planning? Because we know a lot of people, let's talk about field trips. Let's talk about what we watched on TV last night. Let's talk about the ball game, roll tide. You hear that a lot in Alabama. But that's not what it was. So we had to make sure that everyone understood what is planning. We do bi-weekly professional learning communities. So every year, regardless if you're new or not, we do a short session on what is planning and what is a professional learning community to make sure that we understand what Wednesdays look like and what every other Tuesdays look like.
We have maybe 10 minutes left, 7 minutes left. I'd love to lean in now just for a little bit on what you're doing this year that's different. And I think this is something I love. I have a school that's going to be working on this next year that I work with. I'd love to hear about kind of what you've done with instructional rounds. I heard that's a focus that you've been focusing on this year. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So last year, Connie and Susan worked with us to start implementing instructional rounds through our arts integration process. And it was very valuable as they worked through that process. What I truly liked about it when we started it last year with them is it provided safe spaces for our teachers to have conversations with them about our strengths and our weaknesses and what we're doing really well and what are some areas that we need to focus more on.
So what is an instructional round?
Okay. So this school year, in the past, we've all done walkthroughs where we have people from outside of the school to come into our building, do observations, go into the classrooms, give us some feedback, and then they left. This year, we started instructional rounds, which are completely different than walkthrough. Instead of having all of the personnel from our central office building, we've had teachers this year that were able to do the instructional rounds, or what we used to call walkthroughs. The teachers go into the classrooms. Our own teachers that work here go into their peers and their colleagues' classrooms to see teaching through the eyes of a different teacher. So they're able to observe other teachers teach and get ideas about, oh, I really like how she did this, or I need to try that in my classroom, and get an idea in a sense of what's going on in the school. What is our instruction looking like outside of my classroom? What are some areas we may need to work on?
So Alex, I'm a teacher at a school down the street, and my principal got this great idea from yours about doing instructional rounds. What are some things I should look forward to that are going to be successful or are going to be helpful? And also, what are some things that I need to be mindful of, keeping in mind as we put this into practice at our school?
With the instructional rounds, I think the shift from it being outsiders at the board to teachers within our own school has been a very helpful way to shift our own thinking. It's less intimidating, for one, and you know that this person that's observing me and giving me feedback as someone who is in the same trenches as me. It's someone that is walking in the same shoes as me. I know that they have a similar understanding to me. It doesn't even have to be someone in the same grade. I think I went and observed a 3rd grade room, and I had a 4th grade teacher come observe mine for a walkthrough. It's just, but knowing it's a peer rather than maybe someone higher up coming to watch you makes it less intimidating to start with. And I think it's been incredibly helpful. I feel, compared to our old walkthroughs, I think what the people who are doing the observations are looking for are more specific and purposeful. We have found as a school,
I'm going to shift the camera because I know where she's going. You can see here, and I told you our conference room is full. This year, our focus was vocabulary. So we started making sure that we had something in place where teachers could break down vocabulary, all the different forms. And you can see here, we talked about having the charts. This is from our instructional round. Vocabulary, explicit instruction. What are the strengths? What are some areas we need to work on?
So what we see are 2 columns, and in each column, from the peer-to-peer observations, you've created sticky notes that sort of summarize what you've seen, and you're organizing it into like practices we like, practices we want to work on. So as a whole group, you sort of synthesize the information.
Yes. When we did our instructional rounds, we were given a form, and on the form, it had 2 questions. What are students doing and saying? What is the teacher doing and saying? We would go, if we were the observer that day, we would go into 3 different classrooms and observe the lesson and just take notes about those 2 things. Then we would come back into the conference room, and we'd have a minute or a few minutes to ourselves to think and just reflect and take notes on what are some of the common trends that I noticed between these 3 classrooms. Then we would break up into small groups and discuss what we saw, those common trends in that small group, and make it even more. These are the common trends between these 9 classrooms. And then finally, we would meet whole group and talk about, as a school, these are the common trends that we're seeing. Here's where we think we're doing well. Here's where we think, oh, we could do better with this because we notice, oh, all these teachers are struggling with this. And so it gives us more specific and purposeful feedback in a more realistic snapshot.
Was that feedback then incorporated in like PLC discussions and things like that?
Yes. And so this year, our area of focus was vocabulary. We noticed, looking at our data, that vocabulary was an area of weakness. And so we started the beginning of the year by having a PLC on what are some good strategies to incorporate vocabulary more regularly into my daily teaching. And so we taught the teachers about the possum strategy. Wait, our reading coach taught the teachers about how they can utilize the Paulson strategy. You don't want me teaching you all about the Paulson strategy, but we have a wonderful reading coach who made sure through a PLC that teachers were aware of an easy way to break down words to help students understand them differently. And then through arts integration, we're able to act out those words as well in one of the 4 different forms. And so when we did the instructional rounds, our look through at the beginning was vocabulary. When we realized, okay, vocabulary is starting to happen more often in the classroom, let's continue to look at vocabulary, but because it is becoming used more in the classroom, let's also start looking at explicit instruction. And so then we had a professional learning community on what is explicit instruction. And so in the next instructional round, we continue to look for vocabulary, but also because we've talked about explicit instruction, we started looking at that as well and just kind of looking for common trends within the classrooms through the instructional round.
So you've created a culture of learning in which the round is a way for you to see yourself and to see what is happening. Does the teacher receive specific feedback from the observers?
So what we've done in the past, yes, when we had what we called walkthroughs, they would receive, because when we did the walkthroughs, it was on a Google form. And so everyone that came through the district was able to submit their Google form. And we always made sure that teachers were able to get that feedback. But this year, because as I showed you on the Post-it note, it's a little bit different. The feedback's different than a Google form where you can just email everyone. It's all in our conference room, and we meet in here regularly. So for one, everybody's able to look at our data from instructional rounds and see our areas of strengths and our areas of weakness. But when you ask about individual feedback, we address that as a whole through our professional learning communities. We will say, hey, during our instructional rounds, this was really well. However, this is an area of weakness. We're going to talk about that today. Because we truly believe that a PLC teacher should be able to leave a PLC with professional development that they can take away and use in their classroom. And so we're intentional about making sure in PLC meetings, it is a learning format for teachers to learn something to help with instruction.
Well, I want to close up. Thank you, Courtney and Alex. Thinking about a school leader that is trying to really bring something new and cutting edge to their school, can you provide that leader just the most important things to consider and steps that they should take?
As a principal coming into a new school and you have a vision and you're tasked with piloting a program and you're starting from the beginning, I believe it is so important to make sure you have a shared leadership approach, because people want to feel valued and people want to feel heard. And if you come into a situation with a task and you're the only one making the decisions, it's not going to have as much buy-in as you would hope that it would go. You've got to make sure that you're hearing the voices, and even when it's voices or comments as a leader, we all know you hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's important to truly not just hear the good. You've got to, in order to grow in a school and to do great things, you've got to be able to accept those comments that you don't love to hear and be able to take them in. What are the negative things and how can I work to improve in those areas to make the school an environment where everyone can be successful, from the students to the teachers to the classified staff to the administration to the community. And in order to be successful and to have a school where you're continuously making gains, you've got to have that shared leadership. But at the same time, I think it's important to be able to have difficult conversations and those critical conversations, because everyone has an opinion and it's important to hear those opinions and for people to know you want to hear what they have to say. But as a leader too, it's important to have a very good balance of the shared leadership but also making sure that you have expectations and boundaries in place for your school to thrive, to continue to grow.
You've given us very specific and practical ways to create shared leadership. You've talked about the design teams, you've talked about creating a variety of committees, and you've also talked about how to create a professional learning process that is not someone coming in, delivering, and walking away, but is a group of people collaborating around shared problems. And you've also talked about a collective learning process through the instructional rounds to keep getting better at getting better. So all of those are ways that you're putting those into practice. Clearly a well-deserved Pacesetter School. Thank you for coming. And we'll have to have you back on our episode called Difficult Conversations, because that's a whole nother topic that I think principals need to learn. But that's for another time.
That is so hard. It's hard and it's not popular, but it's something to truly grow in a school you have to do.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. SREB is a nonprofit dedicated to improving education from pre-K all the way to PhD and into the workforce. Visit sreb.org for resources on instructional practices, teacher data, career pathways, and more. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at SREB-School Improvement and on Twitter/X and Instagram, both at SREB Education. See you next week.